So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to grow your wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best financial independents and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration, so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I am more than excited about our next guest. He has been a virtual mentor of mine and now is becoming a friend of mine. One thing I love about him, he's a multifamily expert, but he's in the business of empowering other folks to do the same thing, to create active or passive wealth on a massive scale through multifamily investing. So he has picked this niche. He has an amazing podcast. I first met Michael through his deal analyzer, and starting at Marcus and Millichap, I thought I had seen every underwriting tool that was the best until I saw Michael's tool, which is both elegant and also simple and robust, which is hard to find. And it's focused on multifamily syndication, okay? So that is the key, and it's fantastic, and you can check that out. So please welcome to the show, Michael Blanc. Michael, how you doing?
Brett, doing great. Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you. You can find Michael at themichaelblanc.com. He also has a brand new book he's going to tell you about, and also Dealmaker Live. But Michael, before we get into some of those things, would you give our listeners just a little bit about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, look, I mean, the current focus is really helping people become financially free with real estate. So if you're thinking, how do I quit my job, and you got real estate on the brain, then I want to, I want you to check us out. Most people, when they hear that, think that, oh, well, real estate is single family house investing. It's landlording, flipping, wholesaling of some sort. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It just doesn't really lead you to financial freedom. And I've done it. We've flipped 3 dozen houses, relatively successful. It does not check off the passive income bucket checklist. You're like, I just created another rat race for myself. And meanwhile, when you talk about apartment buildings, people say, yeah, that's great, Michael, but man, I don't have the experience for that. Let me flip some houses, do some landlording, and I'll take the experience and the money I make, and then I'll graduate to apartment buildings. And the truth is, you don't need either of those. We have people who, without any kind of experience, overcome the lack of experience very quickly and the lack of money by raising it very quickly. You don't need to go through single family houses. You don't need an experience. This is how you can overcome both of those relatively simple. And the good news about it is that within 1 or 2 years, 3 years max, people are quitting their jobs by getting into apartment buildings.
Absolutely love it. And it's just so neat to be able to share some of this information. We're going to dive in here. But before we go into some of those strategies and some of those tools and some of those ways to get inspired to overcome some of those false beliefs, I'm curious, who was Michael growing up? In other words, not so much what you did, but I want to know, what was the one gift that you were given? I feel we're all given certain God-given gifts. Some people call them superpowers. But what was that one gift, Michael, that really sticks out, that connects how you help people today?
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting to say that, because I didn't really pay attention to what my gifts are, what my passions are, until probably I was in my late 30s, honestly, when I started asking those questions. And I was just chasing the almighty dollar, really, to some degree. I was just trying to figure whatever makes money. That's what I'm going to do. That's why I got into software, computer sciences, because, not because I had a particular talent or interest in it. It's just, hey, I can get a good job and pay the bills and maybe do a little more with it. But my superpower really is teaching. That's what I'm really good at. And that's what I really love. So every time I'm creating content or I'm teaching or I'm doing anything, that really lights me up. It's not even like work. And as I reflect back on my life, every time I did that, it would light me up. I just never paid attention to it. I went back and did whatever, my job was. And so now I get to teach for a large part of the time. And I really enjoy that.
And that really comes out. It's authentic, and hopefully, folks are hearing that now. We're going to dive into some of that teaching right now. And but by the way, what's the most rewarding part about teaching, or about what you do, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it's a transformation that you hope in whoever's listening, right? You have something, experience or a formula or a solution or something that works because it worked for you and it worked for a bunch of other people, and so you just have to blab about it to other people, and you hope that that person will take advantage of that same solution and transform their own life as well. So it's really taking people and taking them from where they are to where they want to be. That's probably the most rewarding.
Absolutely. And for folks who are looking for, they're saying, hey, I might be an expert in a certain field, right? You're listening, you're probably, or might be an expert in commercial real estate or syndication or whatever that your business that you're in. There's others who are looking for that expertise. And it really is exciting to be on the other side to be able to empower people. And as a quick little plug, is a book called Expert Secrets, okay? And it's by a gentleman named Russell Brunson, who it kind of transformed my whole thinking of teaching and educating and helping take people through a process to be able to be inspired and also learn. I check that out if you're interested. That being said, let's dive into some strategies. Maybe what are the top one or two secrets, Michael, for getting started in multifamily investing, and or even more advanced if you want to just focus on that, for the syndicator who maybe has one or two or three deals and he's looking to scale to 3 to 5 to 10, but he's kind of hit a bandwidth on or a ceiling, and he feels a little bit trapped.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I started flipping houses, while I had a lot of ambition and goals. One thing I did not have at the time was money, because I had deployed it all in restaurants. Brett, it's a conversation for another podcast. But my big cash flow idea was restaurants, as misguided as it was. It did work for a period of time until the recession hit, and then changed those plans drastically. So by the time I started flipping houses, I had deployed / lost almost all of my money at that point. But I felt there was in 2009 was a huge opportunity after recession, where you had a humongous supply of foreclosures, and the retail market in the Northern Virginia, DC area was recovering. So you could buy a house at $85,000, put $30,000 into it, and sell it for $175 to $200. And I was like, man, I got to get me some of that, but I didn't have any money. So to answer your question, I could have just sat there and watched the opportunity go by, or I could have learned how to raise money. And that's exactly what I did. And when I did that, a giant light bulb went off for me that showed me I can do things without actually having my own resources. And even if I did, let's say I have $1 million, I buy an apartment building or two, and then I'll be out. So learning the art and science of capital raising is not only the way to get started when you don't have any, but it's also the way to scale. So it really accommodates both of those scenarios that you mentioned, is learning how to raise capital. And it's much simpler than it might seem at the outset.
Well, let's dive into that. What would be the I guess the biggest domino that needs to be knocked over for somebody to learn the art and science of raising capital? What's the one thing, if they could do today, to improve their capital raising?
It really depends on where you are, but really, if you're getting started, it's always the one thing is the first one, right? The first investor that says, yeah, if you find me a deal that seems something like what you talked about, I'm in for $50,000, $100,000. And you're like, you are? And then all of a sudden your confidence level starts going up. And once you have that verbal commitment from somebody, it makes it a lot easier to get that second and that third and that fourth. And if you have raised some money, you've raised $500,000 or you raised $1 million, the one thing that will get you to the next level is by moving your message online, by really getting into digital marketing. So there are two separate things. It really depends a lot on where you are. The first one is the light bulb moment when you're like, oh my gosh, you mean I can raise money from people? And I don't have to feel like I'm begging them for money. I'm actually doing them a service by offering them opportunities that generate cash flow, generate wealth, and don't pay taxes. Like I'm actually providing a service. And then the other one that people get stuck on is they have an inability to scale because they have not moved the conversation online, social media, marketing, things of that nature.
Absolutely. And a couple thoughts on that. At Marcus and Millichap, we learned a thing called a conditional close, which essentially is if one, two, and three, and if it's to your satisfaction, would you do Y, right? So if X to your satisfaction, would you do Y? So something could be, hey, if I were able to find a multifamily investment property and it has somewhere between a 6 and 8% return and you get some depreciation right off, right? Unless most folks don't even know about, right? So you're approaching this maybe traditional stock market investor or traditional W-2 high earner, and they're not aware of these amazing benefits that especially investment real estate have. And you're going to educate them. You're going to add value to them. And you're going to show them that by putting it here, if the $50,000 might produce, let's say, $5,000 of cash flow, of which you can offset, let's say, a couple thousand in depreciation. If I can show you this, you're adding value. Would you be willing to invest with me? Is that sort of the process, or Michael, or what would you change there?
Well, that's exactly right. We take it another step further. We have something called a sample deal package, which you may have heard about. Is it basically you create a financial marketing package for an investment opportunity that everything about it may be real. It's a real apartment. It's got some real photos, but you don't have it on a contract. Now, you don't you tell the investor that, hey, this is not a deal I have, but these are the kind of deals I'm coming across my desk. These are the kind of deals I want to invest in. And you use it as a conversation piece. So it takes what you guys learned at Marcus Millichap another step further, because it has a theoretical conversation piece, but you use it to get the larger questions and objections on the table. Well, why? What is multifamily? Why should I invest? How does it work? Why should I invest with you? And so you get all these big objections out of the way. So when you actually have a live deal, you send them the real deal package, and they're not going to ask you these giant questions. They may have deal specific questions that are going to be relatively minor in nature. So therefore, subsequently, you can then, seemingly effortlessly in a matter of days raise, $1 million because of the work you did up front.
I love that. So you're breaking false beliefs. More so, you're educating to help people get comfortable on an actual deal where you can see it, analyze it, go through it, right? Ask the tough questions. And then when the actual deal does come, a lot of that's already been done because you guys went through the sample deal, right? And that's powerful. So and walk us through how you help people develop or create that sample.
Yeah,
deal
you great example is getting a deal from Marcus Millichap. Marcus Millichap is some of the best marketing packages out there because it's everything about the property. More importantly, it's everything about the market, the demographics and the photos and why the market is good. And so you get a lot of information from the broker's marketing package. Now, you do have to put some financial projections around it, which, of course, the syndicated deal analyzer makes relatively simple. So you copy and paste from here and you copy and paste from there. And you create a marketing package for the investor out of that. And it doesn't have to look pretty. The numbers don't have to be right. The point is you use it as a conversation piece that introduces someone who obviously has money to invest, but traditionally has invested in stock market, mutual funds, or index funds. And now you're introducing them to a whole new asset class. That's the goal of it.
Perfect. So that's step one, and now you're getting some momentum. You're understanding multifamily, or you've already understood multifamily. You just have never actually taken it to friends and family and potential partners. So now you've got it there. What is step number two?
Well, step number two is cultivating the relationship to the point where they verbally commit their interest to you in investing. You want a verbal commitment. Right. And it's basically, hey, if I brought you a deal that's substantial like that, would you be comfortable how much would you feel comfortable in investing? And you have a conversation about using your IRA, and they say, well, what's the minimum? And you say 50, they go, oh, 50. All right. And so that's step number two. And then step number three is to stay in touch with them, because you may not have a live deal for a month, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So step four is to stay in touch with those investors. Put them on email. Put out emails, newsletters, call them every once in a while, stay in touch with them. And then step number 5, or where we are right now, is to actually have a live deal. And that's typically what we do is you put on a live webinar or a conference call. You invite your investors on there. You send them out your real deal package now, and you answer their questions, and then you get them to submit what's called a soft commit. Soft commit is just something you want to raise their hand, and they go, I'm still interested, and here's the amount I'm interested. Great, that sounds good. Well, if you're interested, then the next step is for you to review the legal documents and to sign those legal documents. When you've done that, then you can wire the funds into the escrow account, and then we close on the deal. So that's really it, the process start to finish.
Excellent. So now let's imagine you've closed the deal and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible now for these 10 investors who have all put $50,000 in. I'm in with my own money. Here we go. One thing I've seen with syndicators and operators I've worked with is some people are, real estate's a team sport, right? And they're great at raising funds, raising capital, right? That initial excitement and initial push to get there. That's kind of more my personality style, right? That's what I've been able to do for other operators and syndicators. But then there's the operations, and there's the day to day, and there's the management, and there's the distributions, and there's all the nitty gritty. So walk us through the person who says, you know what, I could raise the capital, I could do the deal, but now like I'm going to feel overwhelmed with everyone else's funds and having to do all these returns. So what do I do?
Well, it's interesting. And you're right. I mean, the acquisition and the capital raise is exciting. It's just so exciting. And when you close, you pop your champagne. You're like, on to the next one. Yeah. And they always say in the flipping house business that you kind of make your money when you buy. And that is true. It is not true, I believe, on the multifamily or any commercial real estate, because if you don't execute on your business plan, you're not going to make any money at all. In fact, the general partners don't make money unless the investors make money typically. So there's a certain hurdle you have to come over for there to be enough money. So you have to execute on your business plan. Now, for people like me, that might be super boring, right? Because now it's meeting with your property manager, reviewing numbers, doing property visits, putting out reports. Oh my gosh. But while this may not be as exciting as closing a deal or raising money, it is super important, arguably even more important. So, we last year hired actually someone just who focuses nothing on the asset management. It's a totally different person. That person is a very strong manager, a very strong administrator, who's very good with numbers, very good with people, very good with processes. And it's super, super important. And so that's number one, is really focusing on the operations. And if you don't love operations, that's okay. You don't have to love operations. Then either hire someone or partner with someone that does that. It's just someone's got to do it, and it's absolutely super important. The other thing that's super important is to communicate with your investors. I've been on the receiving side of passively investing a while back in a variety of investments, and as soon as the investment didn't quite go as planned, what happens? The communication stops entirely. The report was late. Now it's 5 days late, 7 days late. So no email response. Now you're calling them. Like, what's going on? Oh, something is not right. And so whoever's in charge stops communicating. And it's happened to me repeatedly, to the point where when I was in a position to take people's money, I was like, if something's not going right, I'm going to increase my level of communication, because that drives an investor crazy, not knowing what's going on, especially if you're a first-time investor. And you're expecting this, and all of a sudden this is happening, because not every deal goes as planned. Some do, but some don't. And so how do you deal with people when their expectations are not met, right? So picking up the level of communication to people, telling them what's going on, as unpleasant as it is. Oh, by the way, we're going to miss our distribution this quarter because whatever went on. There was a gas leak, or we had to fire the property, whatever the case may be. No one likes to send that email. But the worst is not saying anything, missing the payment, and then getting emails and phone calls from your investors. And now they get really upset. So really picking up the level of communication is key.
That makes perfect sense, and I can also relate to that. Likewise, for the deals where I've been passively investing, and you're right, everyone likes to be the spreader of good news and get the attaboys. But hey, you've also, as a leader, you got to be willing to take your licks too if you haven't performed, or even sometimes out of your control. The key is just to be transparent up front, and you're all in it together. And I also, even before that, the key is to structure the deal in such a way that the general partner needs to perform in order to actually benefit, right? Of course, there's an asset management fee, and there's some standard stuff there. But walk us through maybe ways that you found to make it a win-win for both sides, for the GP and the limited partners.
Well, one way I find a win-win is to align both the GPs and the LPs together. And one way I found not to do that is with a preferred return. Now, there are some syndicators who offer preferred return who are almost all, without exception, getting off of the preferred return for the same reason that I've been saying for years. It is not aligned, because preferred return, of course, as some of your listeners may know, really gives the investors, the LPs, the first chunk of whatever money comes out. Let's say it's an 8% preferred return. That means that 8% of any money invested flows to the investors first. And that sounds great, and it philosophically sounds good, right? Because the investor should be taken care of first, and then the GP should be taken care of second. I get that. The GP should only make money when the LPs have made money. I get all that. Here's the problem with it. When you get in a deficiency situation is where the problem starts happening. Deficient situation is when there's not enough cash flow to serve the preferred return, and therefore it starts accruing. So let's say in year one, you promised 8% return, but you can only pay out 3%. Gosh, we had a rough patch. Something happened. We had to fire the property manager. Now we're recovering, but now we're 5% in the hole, which then rolls over next year. So now I got 13% the next year. Well, and I'm going from a 3% return to say 5% because I'm getting better. Now I'm tacking another 3% on top of the 13 I had this year. So after a while, the GPs can never get themselves out of the hole, ever, until they sell, which they might go, did I say a 5-year hold? I meant a 2-year hold because I better sell this monster because I'll never get paid a dime unless I sell it. Now, if they sell it, what's going to happen to the IRR? Well, it's not going to be where it was promised. It'll be lower, right? Or they could say, this is for the birds. I'm just going to walk away and just turn the keys back. The bank can have it. So what I'm saying is, while philosophically people talk about the preferred, about how it's the best thing, no, it's not. It does not align, because in a straight split, the investors make money, the GPs make money. If the investors don't make money, GPs don't make money at all. And that, in me, is being aligned on the same page.
That makes perfect sense. And I haven't even thought of it that way before. And you got me rethinking the way that I've been in different deals, and just to kind of bring it to full circle in my mind, it's almost like the GP is going into debt, right? And they start to feel like this debt is overwhelming, and it's like being underwater on a house, and the value is going for this person who's a silent partner, right? They're not on the day-to-day grinding it out, and at a certain point, it's like, I'm doing all this work, and some things are out of my control. Maybe some things I could have improved, but at the end of the day, like I'm not getting anything out of this, right? And it's getting worse every single year. And so rather than doing it that way, let's say, hey, we're all in this together. We're going to split, let's say 50-50 on whatever the profits are. Walk us through, I guess, the better way to do that. Then, like, what would be your ideal way to set up?
Well, straight split, 70-30, 80-20, whatever the case may be. That's really it, right? That aligns everybody perfectly.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Great. Okay, great. So now you've bought the deal. Now you're operating the deal. You've hired the person or partnered with the person to do that. I guess one question the syndicator might have: well, how would I structure that deal with the operations? Is that also a straight split, or how do you do 50-50 on that? Or walk us through how much does the operations partner generally get versus this person who's raising the capital and has started the whole thing?
So you're referring to a joint venture, it sounds like to me. So it really depends. We started off as a joint venture and are moving more towards an employment model. But that's only because we have more asset management fees. Now, the asset management fees, contrary to popular belief, are not there to buy beer with, right? They're used to cover overhead. And the overhead is people, primarily. People and travel, probably in that order. What happens in a joint venture, which is great, well, the benefit of the joint venture allows you to bootstrap an operation because there's no fixed overhead because you're paying everybody in equity, right? Or you're paying everybody in equity. But if you look at the cost of equity, it's very high. It's very high. So you ask them, how much does an operator get? That's a really hard question to answer. You could say, well, who's ever operating should get 30% of the GP. Okay, that's good. Or it could be more, or it could be less. It really depends. At the end of the day, what we're finding is that what we did 2 years ago is not really serving us anymore, because the cost of capital to give away that much equity is no longer doesn't
equitable.
Work for equitable. It's not equitable, because now the equity is worth so much more than just paying someone a very reasonable salary as well. So things change. So it's tough to answer your question. The methodology really is, though, and we have this built in the syndicated deal analyzer, is really kind of figuring out what all the roles are, identifying each role, a weighting, and then each role, what does each partner do in each role? Okay, so you might say, gosh, the deal finding role might be, I'll make it up 15% of the GP. and one person found a deal, well, they should get the entire 15% of that bucket, right? Capital raising, let's say that's 30% of the GP. Well, there's two people responsible for exactly 50% each of that capital raising. Well, they should split that bucket, right? And so on and so forth. So by the time you're done, you can create a spreadsheet, which I've already done, that they dumps out in the bottom. Oh, if these people do these roles, then they should each get this percentage of the GP. And so this is a methodology for coming to agreement on a joint venture. But people do that all the time.
And I hope you caught that at the end. I certainly did. What Michael's done over the last, I don't know how many years you've been in the business now, Michael, let's say the last 10 years, he's done it the hard way. What's the hard way? Well, he had to do it himself. He had to start out, do it himself. He had to, look at different analyzers, then create an analyzer, then he had to look at different structures. And now he's fast forward. He went through the pref period. Now he, went through the JV period. And now he's doing the employment model. The point is he has it all for you and he wants to help empower you with it. And for $600, you can be on the VIP list on Dealmaker Live and be a part of this whole amazing, I think it's a 3-day event online, and you can get empowered today. And I imagine there's other tools that come with that too, and other things that you can access. But the point is, he's done it the hard way. He wants to show you the easy way and help you avoid a lot of mistakes and empower you with that. Is that a fair summary, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. And my journey to where I am right now is very convoluted, expensive, and long. Now, fortunately, a lot of people we work with are much more direct. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do is should give you a more direct path to your goal, which is typically financial freedom. And then, of course, after that, the challenge becomes, well, how do I scale this thing? How do I then possibly even leave a legacy? And that opens up a whole new set of challenges.
Absolutely, which that's part of what we do with the capital gains tax solutions and the Deferred Sales Trust. More on that later, but are you ready for the lightning round, Michael?
Oh my gosh, there's a lightning round. Sounds scary. Let's do it.
All right, well, let's dive right in. Okay, so knowing what you know now, Michael, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you would make sure you would do or you would know?
I would go back a little further. I would go back and, first of all, I would tell myself that being an entrepreneur is a thing, because I didn't know it was a thing. So it was very fun for me. I was never surrounded by any kind of entrepreneur, so I never thought it was a thing. People who grew up around entrepreneurs obviously know it's a thing. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a thing. It's always been a thing. For me, it wasn't a thing. So knowing that you can actually start a business on your own, that would have been important information. Also, passive income. The whole idea about Rich Dad Poor Dad. If I could have handed myself in book when I was younger, that would have been useful as well. And then right after that, I would have handed them some kind of multifamily syndication book like mine, maybe. And it said, hey, you can go through, you can do all these businesses, restaurant software, short sales, house flipping. You can do those things, and if you really feel like asserting pain on yourself. Or I got a better idea. Why don't you just go right at this one, which is going to be much better? So that's what I would tell myself.
I love that. What is the biggest mistake you, a client, or a partner have ever made with capital gains tax deferral? Or what's a big challenge you're facing right now?
Well, one of the mistakes I made is I thought that investing with my IRA was tax deferred or tax free, which, and now in hindsight, apparently it's not. You have something called the UBIT, the unrelated business income tax, and I'm like, what? So I invested in some syndication, like literally 15 years ago, my first exposure to syndication before I even started getting active. And years later, I get a tax bill in my IRA, and I'm like, what? That's got to be like a typo. Oh, you can get taxed in your IRA. Well, so what do I have to do? I have to get a tax ID number, and then I have to file taxes, and then I have to pay penalties and interest for not having filed taxes the 7 years prior. So I have this giant mess in my hands. So, it's one of those things where you kind of stick your head in the sand with regards to taxes, because you figure like your CPA will just kind of handle it. And, or your financial advisor will handle your finances. Like the same thing. It's like, just leave me alone. I'm too busy for these things. So educating yourself about these tax vehicles, what you're doing with the DST, or studying Tom Wheelwright's book, or Damian Lupo and the QRP, as boring as these things are, oh my gosh, if you can save or make tens of thousands of dollars more money, is it not worth spending a little extra time just to educate yourself?
Exactly right. You nailed it. And that's also part of the reasons why I stopped doing a self-directed IRA into real estate deals, because I'm going, First of all, I want my money now or earlier. Like maybe I want it 55 or 50 or 45. I don't necessarily want to wait till I'm 60 or older and follow these rules. Like I'm looking for passive wealth and freedom now. Time is worth more to me than the money part of it. And then you're right. It does now. If you have a huge IRA that's already built up or a huge 401k that's so big. Okay, sure. And you're older and you're already kind of closer to that age. I could see that more, but certainly for I'm 37, right? Younger investors, I can see that. So, okay, great. Moving on. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
A digital mobile resource. Oh my gosh. Brett, there's so many I use. I don't even know where to start. Digital mobile resource. So we use WhatsApp a lot for communicating with my family, who is some in Germany, and also with our team members. What I love about it is the ability to leave voice messages with each other, so I can have a conversation with someone over the phone. Love that. I love Boomerang for Gmail. Boomerang for allows you to bring something back in the inbox if someone has not responded in a certain time that you specify. Stuff like that. Oh my gosh, I can go on. I'm gonna have an entire show on technology.
That's great.
I love it. I think technology literally makes everything more productive.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. That's great. Favorite leadership quote or theme that you try to live by?
One of my favorite quotes right now is something called by Tony Robbins, which is, "It's a moment in a moments of your decision. No, in your moments of decision where your destiny is shaped." And it is because when I study people who've changed their lives, specifically by going in a multifamily, and I ask them, "Do you remember the exact moment when you decided that you were going to do that?" And most people go, "Yes, I do. It was the night of blah, blah, blah." I was putting my daughter to bed and she was asking me if I can come to her recital tomorrow. And I said, "Well, no, I have to work." And I saw her face drop, and I decided then and there that I could not be in the same place this time next year. Something like that. And so that person has decided in that particular moment that enough is enough. They want to change their life. And so that decision point is absolutely important for doing anything meaningful in life, whether it's losing weight or having a better relationship or quitting your job. It is really the decision point and really truly making a decision.
I love that. It's so inspiring. Ideas plus inspiration. And when you get, disgusted enough or frustrated with something and then taking that massive action to make a difference and change your life. What are you curious about right now, Michael?
My gosh, what am I curious about? I'm a learner, right? So I'm also a teacher, but I'm also a learner. So I'm constantly learning all kinds of stuff. I read a lot. I've always been curious for a long time, learning more about digital marketing, really related to getting your message out, increasing your impact. So if our message is financial freedom with real estate, that's a pretty broad market of people who are thinking single family houses. How can I reach those people? And also, how can I get more people, make them financially free? So I'm always a student and curious about different ways to get your message out. But in general, I'm curious about many different things. But right now, the idea of, we're teaching marketing techniques right now to syndicators because we talked about the ceiling they reach, and we want to help them expand that ceiling and be able to raise more money, therefore getting more passive investors out of Wall Street and syndications.
Love it. Love it. Last questions, and then we'll mention where you can find Michael again. But so Michael, how do you stay centered in your values after all your success in your podcast and the book and the multifamily syndication and raising, millions and millions of dollars and doing these huge deals across the US? How do you stay centered in your values? And then second, how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new goals?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm fairly centered in my values anyway, but what I'm finding is I have been recently being asked to opine on things that I don't really have a strong opinion about. I don't feel it's my mission or my message, and so I'm grappling with that right now. What do you think about COVID? What do you think about the riots? And I'm like, I don't really think too much. I just want to get stuff done. Okay, I do. Now, and I may be misguided here. If you have a platform and influence, maybe you should opine on things. But it goes back to your values, and it's one of those things where I don't feel if I need to opine on racism, for example, and it's not something I have a message on. It's never been a problem for me, for example, right? But nevertheless, I need to opine on this, but it's not who I am. Maybe I need to become a different person. I'm open to that. Maybe I need to develop opinions on these things. And I'm really currently struggling with this particular problem right now. Other than that, I'm very very well centered in my values. Though having said that, your values do change over time. I made it for 10 years ago and be very convinced I was the owner of truth and nothing but the truth. And now I'm like, well, I'm not so sure. I think something different. So, I think your values change over time. But I do fairly centered in my values, just in general. But when something like this happens, you have to ask yourself, well, should I look at my values? Should I possibly readjust those values, or do I need to stick to my guns? And sometimes it's not clear.
You're right. And this is one of the most challenging times we've ever seen as far as a level of stress, a level of anxiety, a level of hopelessness, despair for a lot of folks. One thing it makes me think of is just counting all of our blessings, just being so thankful for what we have and do the best we can to make a difference in more people's lives so that they don't have to face these things or they're empowered to fight against these things. That being said, I just watched, I don't know if you watched it, but Michael Jordan documentary, it's called The Last Dance. It's on the Bulls and Michael Jordan. And they actually brought up this exact subject with Michael, and a lot of folks were saying, hey, you have such a platform and you're an African American and you've dealt with race in the past, and he's a middle class upbringing, amazing parents, and they some people criticized him for not saying more, not doing more, and Michael kind of said, that wasn't my calling, right? That wasn't my position. Not that I don't have an opinion, but in other words, I think sometimes it can actually distract from what for example, Michael's scenario. Michael inspired the whole world across every race, right, in every sport. I mean, he was transformational in so many ways, and for him, he was authentic to who he was, right. And his way was not to necessarily jump into politics or jump in and be a major contributor. Doesn't mean, like, for example, LeBron James, he's different. He's authentic to who he is, and he speaks out, and I applaud him for that too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I really appreciate the way the documentary put that. And if you haven't seen that, The Last Dance, it just came out, and it's an amazing story of the Bulls and Michael Jordan's journey and a lot of the struggles behind the scenes that a lot of folks don't know until you're seeing that inner look. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important that you develop your voice. That's the thing. And I think especially in the beginning, I was looking for role models and I started, regurgitating what they were saying, and it really wasn't me. And you got to use your own voice. And this is one of those things exactly. Now, let's say you don't have a voice on something. I don't have anything to say. Is that okay? Is that your voice? Or should you develop your voice in that way? And that's the hard part. And the thing that's absolutely true is that you have to be authentic. Every time you try to be someone that you're not, it's always going to backfire. It's always going to people can see that a mile away. So whatever your style is, whatever your preferences, however you speak, whatever you think, whatever you like, whatever you don't like, that's you. And that needs to come out. And it's a lot less stressful. I have to keep all these things in my mind, like all this, whatever image I have, I don't have to keep in mind. I'm just whoever I am. And I like to see you with me, you kind of get what you get, whether you're on a podcast or I'm drinking beer over there, I'm going to be about the same. Like, it just keeps the stress out for me. But figuring out your voice for certain things, it's an important thing to pay attention to.
So well said. And for our listeners, Michael and I didn't know we were going to go here, but I mean, you're getting some real estate, you're getting some multifamily, you're getting some inspiration, but hopefully some authentic feelings about some real struggles that our nation's facing and that things that we wrestle with every single day. So with that, Michael, where can our listeners find you? Remind them of Dealmaker Live, remind them of the book. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, the main website is themichaelblank.com. That's BLANK.com, or just Google apartment building investing. You can find me that way. Dealmaker Live is dealmakerliveevent.com. That's in middle of July. It's a virtual event, and we're going to have some pretty cool networking opportunities as well there as well. The book is called Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing. It's a yellow book, and it's on Amazon.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael, for sharing your ideas, your deal stories, your expertise, for educating us using the gift you've been given to inspire others. And you certainly did that today. I want to encourage you to keep using that gift, keep making a difference in others, and keep helping people get passive or active wealth through multifamily investing. And with that, I want to thank our listeners again for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to grow your wealth. With that, please rate, review, subscribe, share this with somebody for some inspiration and some ideas. And we thank you so much for listening. Bye now.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.